Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Point Guards Overall podcast. I am your host, Ashton Stewart, and today we have a special episode. We are going to be diving into the top 10 point guards in the NBA, but specifically from the 1990s era. Now, this era of basketball it's arguably the greatest era to ever exist. The 90s brought the game from an American sport where we have our players and it stays within our country. It made it international from the Dream Team to icons like Michael Jordan and the entire Chicago Bulls franchise. And I would say point guards go relatively under the radar in terms of the 1990s era with players like Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, majority of who are big men. So, without further ado, let's get right into this list. Now, number 10, I have Mark Jackson, who played for the Pacers and the Clippers and the Knicks. He averaged around 13 points a game with 8 assists. Now, he's on this list so high because he was a part of major teams. That Pacers team almost knocked off Jordan in his last dance run, and Mark Jackson was a irreplaceable piece of that team. Moving on, number 9, I have Mark Price from the Cleveland Cavaliers. This team also almost knocked off Jordan in the playoffs. Mark Price is a very undervalued point guard, I believe. He averaged 18.5 points, 8 assists, and led the NBA in free throw percentage 3 times, was a 4-time All-NBA player and a 4-time All-Star. Relatively smaller guard, I think around 5'10", 5'11", but played very, very scrappy, and he earned every single thing he got in the NBA. Number 8 is Magic Johnson. Now, we all know that Magic Johnson predominantly, well, was dominant in the 1980s era. He had 4 MVPs, 5 championships. He outplayed the late great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but he still had a decent run in the 90s. He averaged 19.8 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds in his little 2 to 3 season stint in the 90s. Um, and that those seasons alone propelled him above those two players. Strictly, that's how amazing of a player he really is. Number 7, again, is a point guard who was much better in the 80s, but still had a good enough run in the 90s to put him here, and that is the Detroit Pistons' Isaiah Thomas, who averaged 7 points and 8 assists to go along with 1.5 steals. Again, his run, his back-to-back championships in the 80s when he knocked off Michael Jordan, those will forever be remembered. But same thing with Magic Johnson. We have to remember he still had a decent stint in the 90s, which has to be recognized, and I will be the one to recognize it. Number 6, we have Jason Kidd. And again, the reason why I put Jason Kidd above Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson is not because he's better, but he was up and coming in the 90s. He made a name for himself in the 90s, while the two before him made a name for themselves in the 80s. Remember that. He averaged 15 points, 9 assists, and 2 steals while being the Rookie of the Year. This was the start of who we know as the Hall of Fame point guard, J. Kidd, the assist guru. Now he's an amazing coach. He did great on the Mavericks and the Suns, where he really blossomed to eventually become the NBA champion. Number 5 is Kevin Johnson. This man gave Michael Jordan some troubles. This man, 6'1" point guard, no more than 180, 185 pounds, could jump out the gym. On the Phoenix Suns, he gave the Bulls problems in the finals. He averaged 17 points, 8.5 assists, was a most improved player in 1990, and was a 5-time All NBA caliber player. Somehow, though, he has not been inducted into the Hall of Fame. I really don't know how. Also, fun fact, he was the former mayor of the city of Sacramento. So that can only boost his rating at this point. Kevin Johnson was a problem. He would never be forgotten, at least from me. And I think he should be a Hall of Famer in the near future. Number 4 is the man who he didn't. I won't say he was a founder. I'll say he was a co-founder of the Killer crossover, Tim Hardaway Sr. Now, the reason why he's above Kevin Johnson, in my opinion, one, Hardaway was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2022, I believe, and also he helped pioneer the game. Remember that. That's a key element for our next player as well. But Hardaway helped pioneer the game, the crossovers, the headies we do now. A lot of the moves that we do now come from players like Tim Hardaway, Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, who just missed the list by the way. He's very, very close. Steve Francis. Players like that molded the game that we know today, that I play today. That's why he's so high on my list. Also, he was a great player. 18 points a game, 8 assists, 5-time All NBA, strictly throughout the 90s. And he did. I'm pretty sure he played no more than 11 seasons. So almost half of the seasons were All NBA caliber seasons, which is actually ridiculous. Moving on to number three, Penny Hardaway. Remember what I said about pioneering the game? Players like Penny Hardaway, Scottie Pippen, Magic Johnson, they made the point forward position. Penny Hardaway was, I believe, 6'7", running up and down the floor, handling the ball, passing the ball. He made the way for players that we know today like Luka, Wimby, Tatum, even LeBron. You know, that point forward position that we know and love today started with players like Penny Hardaway on the Magic. He was so fun to watch. Him and Shaq going back and forth in the mid to late 90s was just it was a pleasure. It was a huge pleasure to watch. Well, I wasn't there, but a huge pleasure to look back on and watch, I'll say. Now we are getting to the last two. Now these last two, I would like to say they're interchangeable, but I really don't believe that they are. Um, First we have the glove. Arguably the great. No, not. I'm sorry. He simply is the greatest defensive guard to ever lace up his sneakers. Gary Payton from the Seattle Supersonics. Well, and the Lakers and the Heat. But in the 90s, he was the player for the Seattle Supersonics. Now, Gary Payton is a phenomenon. We haven't seen a player like him since him. The closest thing we've seen is maybe Marcus Smart when he was the first guard to win the Defensive Player of the Year award since Gary Payton, I believe in 2022, I believe. I could be mistaken, it could be 2023. But Gary Payton was a defensive mastermind. He was again no taller than 6'1", 6'2", maybe a buck 90, but he was scrappy. He wanted it so bad. He played so hard. He averaged 17 points a game with 7 assists, which again for a defensive oriented player, still putting up almost 20 points a game, which is average by the way. He averaged 20 points in the season, but his average over the course of the 90s seasons was 17 points a game, 7 assists, over 2 steals a game, was the 1996 Defensive Player of the Year, nine time. I believe that's a record for guards. I'll double check, but oh no, point guards, because I think Kobe got 11. So for point guards, I believe that is a record. 9-time All Defensive Team nominations and 9 All NBA seasons. He is the easy number two. He would be number one, but a 6 foot white man who played in Utah has other plans. John Stockton is the official Point Guards Overall podcast number one point guard from the 1990s era. He led the Jazz to 2 Western Conference championships. He battled Michael Jordan in the finals, which arguably he should have won, but we all know what happened. But John Stockton averaged 14 points a game, 11 assists, 1.7 steals, was an 11-time All NBA player and a 5-time All Defensive player. John Stockton him and Karl Malone, it was like yin and yang. It was beautiful, beautiful basketball. And is he as talented as a player like uh, Penny Hardaway or Tim Hardaway or even Kevin Johnson? No, no, he is not. But his talent is not what makes him great. It's the way he plays the game. It's the way he utilized the skills that he did have to play winning basketball, which at the end of the day, that's what matters. These guys may average more points than him, maybe even more steals, more rebounds, but John Stockton played the highest caliber of winning basketball that everybody except for Magic and Isaiah Thomas, who won in the 80s before Stockton even arrived on the scene. So, therefore, John Stockton is our number one point guard of the 1990s. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Next episode, we are going to jump into the next decade, into the 2000s, with players like Allen Iverson. You know what? I don't want to spoil the episode. You'll have to tune in and find out for yourself.